Hi everyone, Mia here from Resonance Astrology. I thought I'd switch it up a bit this time around and just start experimenting with some new endeavors and see how things unfold and go. So, I want to start doing weekly overviews and then maybe during the week if there is something that I want to touch more upon or like look at it more deeply, I would probably make a separate video about this. But I think weekly check-ins are quite good. I also love monthly forecasts, so maybe I'm gonna do that too. I don't know. I'm open to experimenting and seeing where things lead, but I'm super happy to start doing weekly overviews because I think it's a good time frame to just like tune into the energies and say what needs to be said. Monthly forecasts tend to be quite long and weekly overviews are fun. So yeah, so I'm gonna just start at some point. So I'm starting today, and this is the weekly astrological overview from the week of the 29th of January till the 2nd of February 2025. And let's just briefly go over everything that is happening, and then I'm gonna dive a bit more deeply into certain themes to look out for. So on Monday, we have Venus sextiling Uranus and also Mercury sextiling the nodes. On Tuesday, we have Mercury entering Aquarius and Venus entering her pre shadow period. On Wednesday, we have Mercury conjoining Pluto in Aquarius, and we also have the new moon in Aquarius. Super exciting day. And then on a Thursday, we have Uranus stationing direct. The sun is trining Jupiter. On Friday, we don't really have any significant transits, but then on Saturday, we have Venus conjoining Neptune and the North Node. Plus, the moon is also in Pisces during that time, and it will also join this whole conjunction. It's kind of already happening a bit on Friday, and I love that because Friday is Venus Day. So I guess it depends a bit on where you live, but generally it's happening over Friday and Saturday. And this just brings in a lovely, lovely weekend. And then on Sunday, we have a bit of a more quiet day again. So, but I mean, we're still going to feel the energies of the Venus Neptune North Node and Moon in Pisces conjunction on Sunday as well. So I think it's totally fair that nothing crazy is going on Sunday. When I forgot to mention, I'm kind of alternating a bit currently right now between more podcast type of videos where you don't see my face, you only hear my voice. I think that's quite convenient. I'm a person, I love to listen to podcasts or voice notes or whatever when I'm going on my walks in the morning or in the evening. So this is for the people that are like me, honestly. But I also really enjoy watching videos and seeing people interact and seeing their face. So I think I'm going to alternate there as well, sometimes showing my face, sometimes not, because I do really want to be present and also be more visible. But I think the weekly overviews are a good format to do faceless and just hear my voice. So, yeah, let's see about that. But just like a FYI thing. um, okay, back to the weekly overview. So, back to Monday. On Monday, we have Venus sextile Uranus, and usually sextiles are more on the weaker side. They're not super significant. But what I have found is that when Uranus stations a few days later, like stations direct a few days later, it will be at the degree where Venus and Uranus had a conjunction in May of last year. And now we have Venus Uranus moment just before Venus enters her pre shadow period, which will be at 24 degrees of Pisces. So it's interesting that there seems to be a big Venus Uranus story with both of them when they were stationing, and now when Uranus is turning direct and Venus is entering pre shadow. These 23, 24 degrees of Taurus and Pisces seem to be very significant. We will get back to Uranus when I talk about Thursday, but Yeah, that's just for Monday. I think it's a lovely transit to start off the week. I don't have so much to say about Mercury sextiling or trining the nodes because it's sextiling the North Node in Pisces and trining the South Node in Virgo. The nodes have just recently entered the Pisces Virgo axis, so it's all new, and I think if anything, it's just gonna bring a bit of a new approach to maybe looking at certain things. But I think the journey of Mercury is far more interesting on Tuesday when Mercury enters Aquarius and then meets Pluto right away. I think that is far more significant than Mercury having a brief interaction with the nodes. And with this, we can also go right on to Tuesday where Mercury enters Aquarius. And now, Mercury in Aquarius is ruled by Saturn. Saturn is currently still in Pisces, but just generally, Mercury in a Saturn ruled sign can have a bit of melancholic tendencies because it is very related to pondering and deeply thinking about things. And Aquarius is fixed air. So, if we think about the air element, which has to do with our thoughts, it can be very fixed thoughts we have. This is kind of the interesting dichotomy with Aquarius because we tend to associate Aquarius with being progressive and doing new things. But Aquarius can tend to, while it's true, like I'm not denying that fact, but Aquarius can often be very fixated on their viewpoints. And so when sometimes Aquarius is like I'm going to do a new way or like this is better, they can be very fixated upon the new and better way they have put in their mind. It can be a very stuck feeling of like, oh no, like but my ideology is far superior and far better than your ideology, and it's far more progressive, far more scientific, far more evolved, and they can get very stuck in that way of thinking, which is very interesting because we usually only think of the good qualities, so to say. And I think it's definitely very important to also think about the good qualities of Aquarius, of Mercury and Aquarius. Um, but if we have been stuck in any sort of ideological ways of thinking about certain things, the fact that Mercury, like the first planet that Mercury meets when it enters Aquarius is Pluto, it's like it's about to change. We're about to transform some sort of fixated ideas and views we had on the world because Aquarius has a big focus on humanity and technology. And I'm not surprised that a lot of the interactions that are currently happening on social media are kind of in a bit of a bonfire, and people are really questioning, oh, should I even be on social media? A lot of people are quitting Instagram or finding alternative ways to interact and build communities. So that's also very Aquarius in and of itself. And I think Mercury entering Aquarius will highlight that even more and maybe bring in a new way of how can we relate with the internet? How can we relate with each other on the internet? Because I think while I love Instagram, and it's it's funny because in 2020, from like the spring equinox of 2020 till the spring equinox of 2021, but it was a year, is when I took a 1 year social media break. And yeah, okay, I was still on YouTube, so it was not like all social media. I think it's extremely hard to get off of YouTube. But I deleted my Instagram and I was not on Instagram for a year. And there's so many interesting things I learned and that evolved my way of thinking during that time, where I just also really realized the importance of what do I have around me? Like, how can I connect to people around me? And sometimes social media is just this, like, we're not meant to interact with so many people each and every day. It can be so condensed, and there's just so many thoughts and opinions, and it's so unnatural, like years ago, like it's not even that long ago, right? We used to not like we used to know the people in our like nearby vicinity, in like our neighboring villages. We didn't even travel that crazy much. Or if you did, you exchange postcards. But now you're like constantly seeing all thoughts and opinions, and that can be so overwhelming. I mean, our nervous systems are still learning to adapt to all this information overload all the time. And I think it's just also doing a lot about a lot with our emotions and how we view things, because in a way it forces us to be detached. Because if I look through stories, there's like one story is about war, one story is about someone getting married, one story is a funny meme. If I truly sit down to engage with that deeply, um, it would be different. But now I'm going through three emotions, sadness and grief, or maybe anger if I'm seeing something around a war, and maybe happiness, or whatever if I'm seeing someone getting married, and then I'm laughing. And that is so confusing. Like, I'm not surprised so many are people are confused about their emotions and what they're feeling and what they're thinking, because everything is happening all at once. And everything is bound to be even more online with Pluto in Aquarius and Uranus moving into Gemini this year. So I'm just wondering what we're going to do about all of this. And perhaps Mercury entering Aquarius and conjoining Pluto offers us a new way of looking at things, and maybe decentralizing in new ways, finding new online servers, like forming different communities on different online servers. I'm really, really curious how this will develop. And now I talked way more about this than I wanted to. But I find that interesting. The whole correlation between Aquarius and the internet just runs so deep, because the World Wide Web became a thing when Saturn was in Aquarius, like in the beginning of the 90s. And then when we had the second Saturn in Aquarius, which was not too long ago, right? Like around 2020, 2021, 2022. And this is really when, because of the pandemic, everyone started to be much more on the internet, and it really changed the whole field of internet and how we interact with each other. So I'm not surprised if during the Pluto and Aquarius years, everything. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. It's it's hard to say, but because there's always, I'm seeing so much potential in it, and at the same time things are so terrifying. So it's hard to really predict anything concise, because I just think whatever we experience as a digital age is nothing compared to what we are about to witness over the coming years. So, yeah, let's also talk about Venus entering pre shadow period. And I'm laughing because in my notes, I highlighted maybe talk about Venus first, and I totally did not talk about Venus first. Um, but yeah, because I wanted to make like a segment of Mercury entering into Aquarius, and then on Wednesday, Mercury conjoining Pluto, but whatever. So let's talk about Venus briefly. I don't want to go too much in depth because I'm plan on doing a whole video on Venus retrograde, but I think just the fact it's good to know that Venus is entering pre-shadow period. What that means is it's entering the degrees that when Venus stations direct again in April 13 to be exact. And by the way, April 13 is also when there's going to be a Libra full moon. So Venus stationing direct on the Libra full, like a Venusian ruled full moon. I love that. And yeah, Venus is gonna station direct at 24 degrees. Maybe look if anything significant is happening during that day, because usually, if anything is happening on the day that Venus or any other planet stations retrograde, there might be, like, we might get glimpses into what our story arc is of the Venus retrograde cycle. Let's go to Wednesday, middle of the week, Mercury Day. And on Mercury Day, Mercury conjoins Pluto in Aquarius, and we have the new moon in Aquarius. And I put the quote here that I love that quote. When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. I think this is often present when Mercury is doing things, but with Mercury conjunct Pluto, there's just bound to be some sort of changes in the way we look at certain things because everything is literally a matter of perspective. So if we change our perspective, we can change the way we look at things, and then the things we look at start to change. So we might get new solutions to problems or ideas we had just suddenly transforming in new ways. And I also just want to say, like, our thoughts, the way we think about things, are so powerful. So the way we think about things is so important. And Pluto makes tends to make big things small and small things big. So be very aware of what is going on and happening with your thoughts, because easily this transit can lead to overthink and overanalyze, and this can be very unpleasant. I also think it's interesting because it's happening during the new moon, and if we look at like the mythology of Hermes and Hades, which would be Mercury and Pluto, both Hermes and Hades wear a helmet. And so they're both kind of covering their thoughts. We can't really see exactly what their intentions are. And this can lead to us perceiving them as scary or not really knowing, because if you don't really know what someone is going to do or thinks secretly, it can it can lead to a bit of a distrust or just a bit of a stepping back. So, in a way, this is also asking us, what are our true hidden thoughts? And usually the moon illuminates things, but this is more like the full moon. The new moon is also an invisible moon because we can't really see the moon when it's a new moon. So there is really this big emphasis on like digging deep into our subconscious mind. And Pluto Mercury is like just this very big, deep urge to gaining insight into the emotional causes and motivations about why we do certain things that we do. And this can easily lead to overthinking or again overanalyzing, but it's really we want to get to the bottom of certain things. And I also put here in brackets, I think it's interesting because currently, right now, survival games are really in the forefront, aka Squid Game type of things that are going on. I also think survival games have a lot of Mars in Cancer qualities, actually, because Mars in Cancer has a lot to do with the crab bucket mentality, which, if you don't know, the crab bucket mentality is a real phenomenon. And it's when you put a bunch of crabs into one bucket. And basically, if one crab tries to get out of the bucket, other crabs will pull it down back into the bucket. So no crab can ever escape. And it's really like the mentality of it is like you can't have it, no one can have it. Nobody's above everyone, like we're all doomed together, nobody's bound to escape. It's really like a tribal type of mentality, which I think you can also see in survival games a lot. um but I do think a big component of why survival games are so popular, like movies or series or whatever, is because people love to analyze the motivations of why people or certain characters do certain things. Because in a way we have like when we're watching such a show or a movie, we have the comfort of sitting in our home and seeing them put in these macabre situations of life and death. And it makes us just wonder and think, what would I do? Would I betray my best friend? Would I put my life on the line? How would I react if I were put in such a situation? And in a way, even besides that, that's often what we do when we want to analyze and understand why we are the way we are. And Mercury conjunct Pluto can have a bit of this survival primal energy in combination with Mars that is currently in Cancer in its fall. So I would not be surprised if maybe some trauma stories that you have been going through, or just the way that your trauma wounds have made you look, or sorry, think about certain things in your life, might really be highlighted or come to the forefront, because Pluto often brings to the forefront what has been deeply hidden in our subconscious mind, luring behind our back. It's like the monster that is super scary behind our closet, but when we turn on the light, it's like, oh, it's just a shadow. So I think this is what a lot of this transit can be and feel like. So it might be scary, but if we really look at it, we will see that, oh, it's actually just a shadow. And I can totally deal with that. And one big thing of how to deal with, if overthinking or a certain trauma response is coming up for you, is to, well, first of all, be aware that it even is a trauma response. Like, that is always the first key. Um, because Peter Levine also talks about that in one of his books. I don't remember which one it is right now, but he says something about like an emotional avalanche. And it is really when, because usually like a trauma response involves grief, fear, and rage all happening at once. And it is so freaking confusing when this happens, because it feels like a life or death threatening situation. But by knowing that it is that it's not a life or death threatening situation, that it is just a trauma response, it can already be so much more calming. And that's like kind of the gift of Mercury and Aquarius, is to detach ourselves. So this is really where like the gift of Aquarius can come in full benefit. We can be aware and detach ourselves and be like, okay, I am not my thoughts, I am having these thoughts. And I think this distinction is really, really important to make, because then we can start to find different solutions and start to regulate ourselves. And this can look different for everyone, right? For some people, it really helps to write things out. For some people, it really helps to move their body or do certain somatic exercises. And I think the important thing about all of this is to just realize that it's often not really the thoughts that are so hurtful, but the relationship we have to our thoughts that are deeply hurtful and indicative of how well we can cope with what is going on. But Pluto Moon Mercury combination can often bring repressed or hidden feelings, so it's important to have an outlet. Otherwise, this can sadly be a bit of an intense new moon. And if anything usually comes up during a new moon, be sure that when there's a full moon, like half a year later in Aquarius, like things will come to a big bang again. So, it's good to already look at things now if something is coming up, because Pluto usually wants to resolve things in the moment and not later on. So if you have the time, I would highly suggest that you sit down and really see how can you, I don't know, move through these thoughts, or seek help, ask for help, seriously, if anything is coming up. um I did also briefly want to talk that there's a channel on YouTube that I often watch, called The Crappy Childhood Fairy, from Anna Runkle. But it's not about the channel, although I highly recommend the channel as well. But she often talks about a daily exercise, or daily practice, sorry. And I have found it helpful in my life as well, because it's essentially where you write down your fearful and resentful thoughts and you just get them out. And I think if anybody's struggling right now, this can be a super useful exercise. If you want to know how exactly this works, I recommend you go to her channel, or maybe I can link the link to this practice from her website. It's free, so like don't worry about it, but it's like specifically writing down fearful and resentful thoughts. And this can be super helpful, because you're just writing down like, I am fearful, and it can be really anything, like, I am fearful that my friend betrayed me, because I am fearful that means that nobody loves me. Or I am fearful that I will die by myself. Just everything. Like you can write seriously everything. Like I'm fearful that I forgot to turn off my stove. I am fearful that I will not make it in time tomorrow. And this is so good because again, it detaches you from the fact that you are thinking your thoughts. You are not your thoughts. And this is really the best way to use this transit and go over this transit in a more constructive way. So, this is what I have to say about this. And then on Thursday, we have Uranus stationing direct, Sun is trining Jupiter. Sun trine Jupiter is usually a more joyful aspect, and I think we really need that after this Mercury Pluto conjunction. um, so it serves like I think it serves like a new direction. Like if you really sit down and constructively think about your thoughts, and the new moon usually symbolizes a new beginning anyway. I feel like Jupiter Sun can really give us a bigger glimpse into like, oh yeah, this is where I want to head right now, and we can gain more clarity to actually go and have more vigor to actually go and do the things. Uranus stationing direct. I'm excited about this. I mean, planets changing direction. I mean, especially the outers changing directions is not such a big deal. They go retrograde for a large chunk of time each year, so it's nothing crazy, so to say. But I do think Uranus stationing direct is bringing a change of fortune again. This is always what happens. And the last time when Uranus was like entering its pre-shadow phase, so to say, and we had Uranus at 23 degrees and 15 minutes was on May 16th of 2024. So yeah, 2 days give and take, around May, or just like the whole of May, because Uranus is kind of a slow-moving planet. And by the way, this is what I was also mentioning before, right? But Venus was conjunct Uranus like just 2 days later on May 18th or something like that. So, like, whatever was happening around, I would say maybe May 14th to May 20th of 2024, look at what was going on in like your relational life or just your life in general, because there might be a twist and turn of fate and fortune going on right now. Like if you started your relationship around that time, there might be a change going on now, so look out for that. And then again on Friday, there's nothing crazy going on, which is totally fine. On Saturday, though, we have Venus conjunct Neptune and the North Node. And again, Moon in Pisces also gonna join this whole love fest. This is how I'm calling it. This is a love fest. Because I think that's just kind of what it feels like. And yeah, it's a very mystical, oceanic type of feeling that is happening with these big conjunction going on. The North Node has to do with increase. So what the North Node is doing is essentially just increasing these energies by multifold. So whatever love and devotion type of feelings are going on, North Node tends to amplify these even more. And Venus, Neptune, I mean, just Neptune in general, just has a lot to do with imagination. And this can either work to your benefit or to your detriment. As always, every transit has a, shadow aspect and light aspect, and we can use every transit in a more constructive or destructive way. Obviously, in the worst case scenario, such a transit could have the effect of you know, um, falling in love with a false idea of someone or just being blinded by love. I think you already know where I'm heading, or just being completely swallowed up and then, later on having a moment of disillusionment. So do be careful and discerning with what is going on. If something is too good to be true, it might be then, and that's a good thing, but it's usually not something that lasts super long. North Node might make the diamond extra shiny than it usually would even look like with just Venus Neptune. So, yeah, if something is too good to be true, even if it is in the moment, a few days later you might realize, oh, it was actually a fake diamond, or they made it look extra shiny. And yeah, it's not the real deal. So, do be aware and careful of that, especially when it comes to relationships and, putting other people at pedestals or easily falling in love and easily being swayed. If you have these types of tendencies, do be careful. Don't just fall in love with the next best person. It's probably not going to last, or there might turn out to be some sort of fake Prince Charming. But on a good note, imagination can be such a good tool. And I have this quote here by Carl Sagan, which I just love. And I had it as my like banner or status for when Jupiter was in Pisces, actually. And it says, imagination will often carry us to the worlds that never were, but without it, we go nowhere. So, yeah, and that's precisely the good thing about imagination, because everything starts from our imagination. We first have to be able to imagine things before we can turn them into something tangible and real. And that is like the gift that Pisces gives us, because imagination comes from the word image, right? The first thing is the image of the mind. And the way we engage with these images in our minds determines so much about what we do afterwards in our reality, which is more Aries. Aries is about turning things into tangible, real reality. And this year we will have a lot of Pisces and Aries transits, especially in spring. So this these two signs are really highlighted this year. And there's some other things I want to read from the book Venus and Aphrodite, just because Venus is the freaking queen this week, okay? And there's just so many cool things to say about that. So the quotes are random from the book, they're not all from the same pages, but I just highlighted a few that I want to read out. The Aphrodite principle was pervasive. It was a passion to engage, to saturate life with experience, and then to enjoy kicking back from the adrenaline rush of living life to its fullest extent. I think this is what, this whole conjunction is inviting us to do on Friday and over the weekend. If you want to go wild, this is your permission slip to do it. Because you got to live life to the fullest sometimes, right? And this is really what Venus is kind of here to do and remind us of. And then let's read this. But the brilliant thing about Aphrodite is that she is not just a creature of the imagination. Follow her material trail down time, and she acts as a barometer for the way the world has viewed desire and lust, and the pleasure, purpose, and preoccupation of flesh and blood, women and men, and indeed of those who inhabited diverse points across the spectrum of sex and sexuality. So, once again, Venus is kind of like a permission slip, and obviously, there's a bit more to imagination because Neptune is at play here too, and North Node might really, exacerbate this idea of our imagination. But, at the end of the day, our mind is our home that we can never leave. Like, no matter where we go in the world, we can never leave our head and our thoughts. So we want our mind to be a beautiful place. There's something I've been telling myself all the time recently, and it's kind of like an affirmation, so to say. And it's the movies of my mind are beautiful because I choose to make them so. So the way we think about things really deeply impact our reality and how we view the world. And again, you want you want your mind to be a safe, good place to be in. Okay, let's read a few more things. Aphrodite is far more potently the incarnation of mixes, a pervasive catalyst that was believed to mix things up, that encourage, sometimes forced, intimacy, connection, collaboration. Aphrodite is the goddess with a close eye on the human species. It was she who was believed to encourage the carnal culture and emotional mingling of women and men to inspire relationship across borders and boundaries. She made humans social beings and encouraged civic harmony. Aphrodite's power to unite, to nourish unity, was claimed by antiquity's authors, from playwrights to philosophers, to be the most potent in the universe, greater than that of the other gods. So, Venus is really the principle of connection. And if you're somebody that has been living a pretty shielded life, these transit can easily feel overwhelming because sometimes if good things want to come into our life, it's really us that need to be open and receptive to let good things come into our life. Because if we're just like running away all the time of people wanting to connect with us, and so I think it's interesting, sometimes forced, right? Because sometimes the universe wants good things to come into our life, but then it needs to open us, and we have to get over this uncomfortable feelings inside ourselves that prevent us, that like upkeep our armored shield from good things coming into our life. Um, let's read a few more things. Aphrodite was far more than just a pretty face. She was a sounding board for human behavior and for ethical and cultural dilemmas. To the point of excess and beyond, Aphrodite Venus was deployed as an excuse for extreme passion and extreme desire. So that's what I'm telling you, okay? You have a permission slip from me to have extreme passion and extreme desire. But just this weekend. um yeah, because we want to live life to our fullest. And sometimes I think we just need these experiences. Okay? This is my firm belief. I think sometimes we need these more extreme experiences to truly feel alive and like we're living. And not just like we're barely alive, just going along. Because that's not the point, right? And let's read this. This is the last one. Sorry, there's so many. Aphrodite had, since the classical period, been adored as the goddess of harmonia and harmonia, concord and union, and through antiquity and beyond, she was consistently and widely considered a protector of urban cultures. I love that. I think that is so great for everything that is going on right now, and to build more decentralized communities, um, urban cultures, and I'm just thinking, the moon is exalted in Taurus, which is a sign of Venus. And where does the moon have its joy? It's in the third house. And the third house is our nearby environment, which is urban cultures. So Venus really thrives when we are connected in close knit communities and celebrating love and connection. And this is really the invitation to invite more of this into your life. And yeah, to merge and connect more deeply, because the quality of a relationship determines the quality of our life, as Esther Perel said. So we really want to take a focus on that. And there's also this quote from Dead Poet Society that Robin Williams says. I'm going to be completely honest, I have never really watched the movie itself, but this, like, I'm from the Tumblr times, okay? This was all over Tumblr all the time, and it's stuck in my mind. But there's a part where he says, "We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. The human race is filled with passion and medicine, law, business, engineering. These are noble pursuits and necessary to sustain life. But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for." And this is like the epitome of Venus conjunct Neptune, conjunct North Node, and the moon in Pisces. I think this is really beautiful because it reminds us of the essence and what we stay alive for, right? So I think that's what we really need, um, especially as some sort of base for this year, which is going to be a crazy year. So, yeah, this is it for this week. There's nothing going on Sunday, as I said, and that's perfectly fine because we're going to be divulging in Venus and Neptune. So, yeah, I'll catch up with you next week. If you want to stay in touch with me, all my socials are down below. You can book readings with me through my website, which is also linked down below. And you can follow me on Instagram. I tend to share quite a lot on there as well. and I'll be super excited to keeping up with you every week. And yeah, that's it for now. So have a beautiful week ahead. Message me or comment down below if there has been anything crazy going on in your life. And I'll be super glad to hear about it. And yeah, have a lovely week. See you soon.